everybody! Thanks for watching the DragonflyGinger Inspirational Storytelling channel, where we love to put fun into our dysfunction. If you would like to share your story too, please email us at dragonflygingerstory@gmail.com with recorded version. We here recognize that we're all in this together, and together we will thrive. So welcome to my Bedroom Closet podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. And today I have been inspired to come on here and talk to you about facing my panic and fears. I was reminded by a Facebook memory today of my sheer panic, like sheer terror from 6 years ago from a health crash. And this pandemic, it's weird to me because I actually feel calm and at peace and feel like I know how to navigate myself in such unknowing, scary times. And I really attribute that to getting my ass kicked in life, for one. I've kissed death twice now in my life, and that's not even counting me being the peanut allergy kid all through grade school, when I would be sent to the ER at least 3 times a year in anaphylactic shock. So I'm not even counting that. I'm counting breaking my neck in a near fatal car accident where I actually had an out-of-body experience, and that happened in 1994, which my anniversary is coming up, and that's a pretty incredible story. But 6 years ago, my health crashed for an unknown reason, and it took over 10 months for the cause to be accidentally discovered. And the cause was a low-grade but chronic carbon monoxide poisoning, carbon monoxide poisoning is known as the silent killer. And on that, I kept kicking and screaming, like, I feel like I'm suffocating from the inside out. Please help me. And I was newly in love. I was newly engaged. I was approaching 41 years old, and for the first time wanting to start a family. So like my biological clock was ticking. I had everything to lose, and I was in sheer panic mode, like, help me. And on the outside, I looked like I was going batshit crazy. And wow, hindsight's 2020. For a few years, I was kind of really angry with friends and family because everybody just scattered. And now I get it. But then I felt so abandoned and afraid, and even at one point I was willing to give up and just allow myself to die. And had it not been for my fiance at the time sticking by my side and reassuring me that he wasn't going anywhere, I kept up the good fight. And the reason why I bring this up is because I see so much panic going on, and it breaks my heart. And I wish that there was more that I could do to help even the strangers that I see in feeling that panic. And panic attacks are definitely, there's those panic attacks where you feel like you're dying and it's sheer terror. But then there are and that's very traumatic. And then there's the trauma where you are literally facing death. And that is like an ongoing panic attack that is really hard to come down from. And so today I want to share with you how I got through that. My Facebook memory that I came across was in April 6 years ago. Today's date, actually. And it was talking about me quitting smoking. I had been a cigarette smoker for 29 years, and I really didn't ever see myself quitting. I had tried to quit many, many times, and I hated smoking, but I called it feeding my monster. It was a horrible, horrible addiction to me. It was like the last of my addictions. I had already overcome bulimia at 19 and alcoholism in my 30s and other self-destructive behaviors. And now I found my soulmate and wanted to truly marry and start a family for the first time in my life. And here I get hit with this massive health crisis that now I'm facing, having to quit my very last vice. Like, it was, I couldn't believe how much of a crutch this cigarette had over me. It was like my bestest friend. And to pull that out from under me, I was at a loss and I didn't understand it. And at the same time, I had all these biological things happening to me that were out of control. Like, I developed asthma for the first time in my life and had my first asthma attack ever that scared the shit out of me. And had a blood gas draw, which is really painful, by the way. Those really suck. And it came back and the numbers were so squirrely, and the doctors and everything are like, I don't know what this is. And my dad's a respiratory therapist. I even hit him up. I'm like, here's my results. Can you help me? I feel like I'm suffocating from the inside out. And nobody seems to know what's going on. And he looked at the numbers and he said the same thing. He's like, wow, those numbers are really squirrely. She has really no help at all. And so my fears and my anxieties kept piling on. And like, I had so many symptoms. It was just like a fireworks show exploding inside my body. But on the outside, people couldn't see it. And I have a lot of mental illness in my family on both sides. And so my family started thinking that maybe I was having a nervous mental breakdown. And at one point, they even tried a little bit to do an intervention on me to talk me into signing myself into a mental health ward for 30 days or whatever. And by then I had become so traumatized that it actually turned into a fist fight between me and my sister, and my other sister, who was pregnant at the time, had to split us up. It was really ugly. And wow, trauma does crazy, crazy, crazy things to your mind, body, and spirit. And so I feel very compelled today to share with you my story in hopes that it inspires some hope and help and some light in what feels like a very dark, lonely world. And I can tell you right now, you are not alone. No matter how much it feels that way, you're not alone. So some of the things that I did for myself, especially, well, I don't want to say after, as things that I was doing for myself while in that 10 months from the time my health started crashing, which was like December 31st of 2013. I didn't learn that I had a carbon monoxide poisoning until mid-September of 2014. So 10 months plus went by. And in those 10 months, it was such a crazy train that things that I was doing for myself to just maintain some level of feeling grounded were things like things that I had learned in therapy from my 30s, which was EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, otherwise known as tapping. And that's like, you see people doing this stuff. There's YouTube videos that'll guide you through that. And my layman's explanation of it is it's like a form of acupuncture that it really does help. I don't understand how it works, but holy shit, it really, really helped me out. I also used, I'm a big fan of the YouTube channel Jason Stevenson's Guided Meditations. I had never been a meditator before until my health crash, and I started getting into that because I was dealing with a lot of migraines, a lot of things that were unknown and not understood. So like the migraines, the nausea, I shit my pants several times. And even like I was standing 7 steps away from my own bathroom and shit my pants right in front of my fiance. And oddly, the first thing out of my mouth to him, I was in such a traumatic state, was I started bawling and I said, "Please don't leave me." And he's like, "Why would I leave you?" But that was, that was part of my fears, because I was in such a state of panic. Like I felt so alone and abandoned. Whew, man, I kind of want to cry now. And that was 6 years ago. So anyway, so the meditation helped a lot. I started learning to take care of myself a lot more. Like I'd have conversations in the mirror with myself, looking myself in the eyes and talking to myself as if it was the love of my life, leaning on me for comfort. I would talk to myself that way, and that was kind of new on that level. Like I had practiced it before because it was something I'd learned in therapy to do, or like through psychological reading or something like that, and I would like practice it very minimally. But when my health crashed, I was doing it a lot more, and I'd just be like bawling my eyes out and basically hugging my inner child and telling my inner child it's gonna be okay. And here's the positives going on right now. Let's focus on that. Here's things that you can be doing. Keep fighting the good fight. This is only temporary. Let's get through this together, was how I would talk to myself. So I also learned through therapy in my 30s, and I brought that back in again 6 years ago, was some breathing techniques. And one of my most favorite breathing techniques is the 4-7-8 breathing technique. And what I had learned was it helps to balance the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. It takes a little bit for those to come into balance, but I would do it like 3 times a day, every day, for a couple weeks, and it really made a huge difference. And all of these tools that I'm going to be talking about, I'll put in the description below. And quick plug, if you like what you're hearing so far, please like, share, subscribe, and hit that little bell, ding ding, for to be notified when the next upload is. So anyway, the 4-7-8 breathing technique to balance the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems is basically you inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8, and you try to keep that same rhythm. And I could tell that it would be working because it got really challenging to kind of maintain the same tempo of the force. Count for 4, hold for 7, count for 8, and you could feel I could feel a shift occur, especially like with my heartbeat and my pulse. You could feel that shift happen. It was crazy, and it really, really, really helped bring that level of anxiety and fear and sheer panic down to a much more grounded level. Other things I did was I cleaned up my diet. I went from the standard American diet with a handful of splurges like ice cream or cookies and pop. I used to be a Mountain Dew drinker, like 2 Mountain Dews a day kind of thing, to nothing processed. I started gardening because I was really broke. Like my whole world was crumbling around me with this illness. And it was right at the time too that insurance had changed into the Affordable Care Act. So my really good insurance that I had through the corporation I was working at suddenly became like shit. I had this huge out-of-pocket, not premium, but deduction I had to meet before anything would kick in. And then once it did, it would only cover 80% until up to a certain amount. And like, I totally went broke, and I ended up losing my job. I lost my house, almost died, lost family and friends. Like, my whole world crumbled. And it was really, really hard to see light at the end of the tunnel during the time. I even at one point contemplated euthanizing myself, so otherwise known as suicide, but I didn't see it as suicide. I saw it as more of a euthanizing myself, because I was so sick and nobody knew what was going on, and I felt like nobody understood, and everybody was looking at me like I was just batshit crazy and needed to be locked up. So anyway, so I cleaned up my diet. On my good days, I tried to exercise the best I can. I did a lot of stretching, that took a lot of energy out of me. And so like, my exercise would be walking around a couple of blocks, and that would pretty much exhaust me, and I'd have to come back home and take a nap. But I'd set my timer for my naps so that it wasn't longer than 30 minutes. And I stopped watching the news, and I started watching TED Talks. And through TED Talks, I discovered a wonderful shame researcher named Brené Brown. And so then I started learning more about what she does for her business, and teaching people about shame and guilt. And courage. I started learning more about courage. And as my courage built up, I took an online course from her, and she continues to this day. In fact, she's got this new podcast series. I forget what it's called, but she calls it, she refers to something called FFTs, fucking first times. And oh my God, so many of us are there right now. Like, I don't have kids, but I have a sister and a brother who have kids, and they're having to homeschool. And I think about all my girlfriends and guy friends that have families, and they're homeschooling for the first time, and don't have any like teaching background to them. I can feel all the panic in our country right now, and that's why I'm sharing what I'm sharing. Anyway, so along with that online course, I also discovered a program called MOOCs, which is Massive Open Online Courses. And they're free online courses that are Ivy League level. And the course that I picked to take was called The Science of Happiness. And that was through edX, I believe, / MOOCs, the Massive Open Online course. And I did pay $50 to receive a certificate, and I graduated in May of 2014 with that certificate. And it was truly a college level online course. And The Science of Happiness is still ongoing, and it's through the University of California, Berkeley. So what a cool certificate to have, that I'll even like post it right here when I do the edits to my thing, because I'm pretty proud of it. It was really, really cool. And through that, I learned a lot of other tools. So I started, instead of watching the news, I started listening to my favorite music. And so shout out to Rising Appalachia and Not Going the Medicine People. They were very, very, very helpful. Good soul medicine for me to help me get through everything that I was going through. I started dancing in my living room on purpose, and then as I continued to get healthier and healthier, I had energy to start cleaning my house. So then I'd have to make myself, like, it didn't come naturally, like, oh, I'm dusting and I feel like singing and dancing. No, it was telling myself Okay, while you dust, while you vacuum, turn up the tunes and sing. And it'd be like going to the gym. I hate going to the gym, but once you get there and once you get past the warm up, you find that rhythm and you're like, okay, now this feels good. Now I'm glad I'm here. And by the time the workout's over and you're leaving, you're like, damn, I'm glad I did that. I feel good now. And now I can, my day just brightened up. And that's what the singing and dancing while I was cleaning my house did for me. I started gardening, and I had never gardened before, and it was kind of a win-win situation because it helped me eat nutritiously whole foods that were just jam-packed full of antioxidants and vitamins and minerals, and it got me outside to get that wonderful vitamin D, which is actually a hormone in the body. That's funny that we call it a vitamin, but anyway, it's a hormone produced in our body that we get naturally from the sun. And so it got me outside, got me out in that fresh air, and it got my hands in the dirt. And here's the beauty of Mother Nature. So this is called earthing, and I had never heard of it before. And it was funny too, because as I was healing myself through all these natural remedies and working with functional medicine as well, I had to adjust my own paradigms. I didn't grow up in a holistic setting, so I really had to work hard on my perceptions of things and work on being open-minded and kind of using myself as an experiment to see what worked, what didn't, and really give it enough time to see if it did work. And the grounding / earthing does. And the difference between earthing and grounding is earthing is your skin is actually to the earth, versus grounding is more of a man-made earthing. And so it's kind of like, think about an antibiotic. Garlic is a natural antibiotic. That'd be like earthing. But then our amoxicillin would be the grounding. So it's kind of like that. Anyway, so the gardening got me earthing, and the positive, and what earthing is, the planet's very heavy in negative ions. We humans have created a lot of dirty electricity, which is very positively charged, and turns out humans, and probably animals too, but humans are good conduits, and so we tend to take on a lot of inflammation from all this dirty energy. When we get our bare feet in against the earth, or we hug trees, or gardening is wonderful, we get our hands in that dirt, it decreases inflammation. I would love to say significantly. I don't have the data on that, and I don't want to exaggerate, and I am not a scientist. I'm not licensed into anything. This is strictly my own research and self-experimentation that I've done. But I can tell you that it has helped me tremendously. And based on, I was going to the doctors 2-3 times a week, and my blood work would show my inflammation going down. So that's how I know on a scientific level it was working for me. Anyway, so what else did I do for myself? I had lost purpose in my life. I'm a very independent person, and suddenly I was extremely dependent on my fiance. And that was really hard for me. And I am alive because he stuck by my side from beginning to the bittersweet end. I am so blessed. And he gave me purpose. So did his dog. He had this wonderful rescue dog named Ogre. And when Chris would go off to work, Ogre would take over for him, watching and caring for me. And had it not been for Ogre, I don't know that I would have found the motivation to get up out of bed. I had to feed him. I had to play with him. And he was an older dog too, so we were both kind of struggling in life at the time, and I didn't grow up with dogs because of my allergies, and I didn't know much about dogs, and I've never really had a connection with animals on such an empathic level before until Ogre, and he is as much my hero as Chris. It was really pretty cool, like having the purpose of taking care of him made a huge difference. So I guess my non-licensed advice on this tool would be create a purpose in your life, whether it's taking care of plants or pets or another human being that is somewhat self-sufficient. Like, you don't want to, you get it. Anyway, let's see. I had to create a routine for myself because my routine that I had of working my 8 to 5 job, Monday through Friday kind of thing, was gone, and I was left without a routine. And so I needed to draw myself up kind of a schedule and keep myself accountable to it, so that I was going to bed at a certain time, waking up at a certain time, and I gave myself goals to hit throughout the day, and allowed myself naps here and there as needed, but I pushed, just kind of gently pushing that envelope, trying to make forward movement in my health. And I had a lot of back steps, because what would happen is my carbon monoxide poisoning came from the workplace, but not in the way that you think. I had a really stressful job, so over my lunch breaks, I'd go to the open parking garage, have a couple cigarettes, boost up the tunes in my kick-ass Jeep Wrangler, and I'd hula hoop dance in this open parking garage. And the smoking policy is smoke in your car, or go like 15 minutes away from the building in a non-public area or something to have your cigarettes. You know, go hide in an alley or something. Well, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to waste my time walking 15 minutes away on a 15-minute break, or I use my lunch breaks to relieve stress and have a couple smokes inside my car and hula hoop dance in the open parking garage. And never once in a million years did I think that while all the other cars in there are running their systems for either the heat of the summer or the cool of the winter, I was taking on not just the carbon monoxide poisoning from the cigarette, but also from the vehicles. And over the course of a couple years, my teeter-totter went choop, and my health crashed. So, where was I going with this? Create a routine for yourself. Oh, I think that's where I was at. So anyway, I had to create a routine for myself. I totally forgot where I was going. Sorry. That's my FFT fucking first time. Let me see. Oh, another tool that I gave myself that really helped too was I cried, and I cried a lot, and I didn't know why I was crying so much. And I, apparently with trauma, even post-traumatic stress disorder too, which I had a really hard time allowing myself to be labeled that way in any means, because I come from a military family, and military vets, understandably so, deal with that on a level that's really pretty harsh. Like, I feel for them. And for white privileged little old me having PTSD, I was like, I don't deserve that label. And that's so weird to say it like that, but that's kind of how I felt. And but sure enough, that's what I was up against. And when you are traumatized like that on a very biological level, it burns out your adrenal glands, because your body's producing so much stress hormone, that cortisol hormone is just maxing everything out. And when you go into adrenal fatigue and into adrenal burnout, you're gonna cry a lot. At least I did, like a lot. It's embarrassing. But what I discovered was that's my body's natural way of releasing all that unrefined energy. And when you do, I truly believe we are all made of energy. And so my line of thinking is very much on vibrational frequencies, sound waves, light, that kind of thing. And so when you cry like that, just like sobbing hard cry so that it's just a huge release, and when you're done you feel 100 pounds lighter, that's your body's way of expelling that unrefined energy and giving it back to the universe for it to recycle into a higher vibrational frequency that can be probably better used elsewhere. And so because I changed my way of thinking into that, I didn't feel so bad about crying. And now when I see people in public like that, I don't do the whole, oh my God, what the fuck? Now I'm like, right on, you get it, get all that out there. Yes, it's good for you. Yeah, I'm that person now. So I did that for myself. What else did I do? Refrain from alcohol because it is a depressant and it inhibits emotional control. I didn't always. When I was sick, life is like a heartbeat, up, down. And there would be times where I was just so panicky and searching like, I can't take this, I gotta numb out, I don't know what to do. And it'd be food and it'd be a cigarette. Like, I had to quit smoking and I couldn't. It was my last vice. So I would literally like take a drag, 2 drags, and I'd start getting nauseous and feel like I was gonna shit myself, and I'd be taking on a headache and I'd put it out, and about 2 hours later, 2 more drags, and I got down from 3/4 a pack a day to about 2 cigarettes a day, and I just couldn't kick it. I was that addicted. But having to get rid of that put me into that Wi-Fi mode of, well, if I can't have that cigarette, I'm going to go to food. Well, I already know what happens when I go to food, and I really don't want to get obese again, so I'm going to go to alcohol. And alcohol, I like alcohol. It has benefits to it, especially with my broken neck issues from my car accident in 94. I have a lot of nerve damage, a lot of pain, especially when I go to bed at night. And so drinking alcohol would often help my body relax enough so that I could fall asleep. But you don't get good sleep. And so if I did that, my body wouldn't heal. And the healing time for our body is when we are able to get into that nice deep sleep. And so, and I through all my studying, because when you're sick and all you can do is lay on your back, but you have a good solid mind about you, you learn. And I just learned and learned and learned and learned. Like, I looked up I would take my medical summaries and read it, and any word that I didn't understand, I would look up and I would learn about all my ailments, and I would study them and then incorporate that learning into what do I have here or in the vicinity that I can pull from to help pull me out of this dukkha, like they say in Buddhism, which is like deep suffering. So, again, I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, alcohol. So I did dive into alcohol a little bit. Try your best to stay away from it because it will hinder more than help. The other thing that you want to try and do is try not using food or other substances. if you can, and I learned this when I ended up in Mayo Clinic's inpatient program for nicotine, which if you don't know that they had that, they do, and it's wonderful. It's a 9-day program. It's in Rochester, Minnesota. They do have a financial aid program if you need it. Just look them up, and I'll include that down below too in the description as a resource link for you. Anyway, so I learned from them to set up a fire plan. Anytime I had those emotions of like, oh my God, I want to numb out my emotions because I don't know how to deal with all this stress and what I'm feeling and blah, blah, blah. And where's the food? Where's the alcohol? Where's the cigarettes? Have a fire escape plan is what they called it, which is when I feel that way, I'm going to do this. And for me, one of those, this was walking. And I was able to get healthy enough to where I went for walks probably like 5 to 8 times a day. Oh, I just remembered too, going back to the hula hooping in the parking garage. So what my health crash would swing, and this is a lot why too I look so batshit crazy. So I'd be at work and I'd start getting really, really sick. Not just in a day, it would take a couple days, but I'd start getting really, really sick. So then I'd call out sick the next day, and then the next day, and the next, like, it just wasn't getting better. And I'd go to the doctor and they would put me on another month of short-term disability. So I'd be off for a month, and during that month of being away from work, where the source of the carbon monoxide poisoning was coming from, or the main source I should say was coming from, which we didn't know, I would get better. And then I'd be like, yay, I can go back to work. So then I'd go back to work, and in a week's time, my health would crash all over again, and I'd be back on short-term disability for another month. I think I went through, in the year of 2014, I think it was 4 months non-consecutively of short-term disability. And the thing that pissed me off was I filed for long-term disability, and because my short-term disabilities were not consecutive, all the 10 years that I paid into my long-term, I was ineligible. That's what pissed me off. Anyway, so that was a little rewind, and now moving back forward again. Oh, do your best to refrain from stimulants, caffeine, cigarettes. Like, if you're addicted to caffeine, and many of us are, or addicted to cigarettes, I totally get the struggle. Try your best to limit them, because what happens when you're in that state of panic, your heart's already racing. And so if you add a stimulant to it, you will feel like you're going to die, because it just kicks in more of that adrenaline, and then as soon as you start feeling fearful, it kicks that cortisol level in even more, and then next thing you know, a commercial comes on and it triggers a ball session, and you're like, oh my God, I am losing my mind. What am I going to do? You're not losing your mind, and you're not alone. So stay mindful of what you're doing, and set yourself up a fire escape plan, as Mayo Clinic's inpatient nicotine program taught me. What else? Another thing that I ended up having to do, because I was really, really traumatized, especially after my fist fight with my sister, I think I was 42? No, I was 41, having a fist fight at 41 years old with my sister, and having our baby sister, who was 7 months pregnant at the time, break it up. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And so that's when I knew I needed to reach back out to my therapist from when I was in my 30s, going through a lot of self-sabotage. And he's the one who actually taught me about the Mayo Clinic program. I had no idea. But anyway, for those people that are like, I'll never do therapy, and I know I have a lot of friends and family in my life that are like that, I'll never do therapy. think of therapy as like going to the gym. The gym is for the body, but therapy, like good cognitive behavioral therapy, psychotherapy, just because it's called psychological therapy doesn't mean you're psychotic at all. All it means is you're going to the gym for your mind and your spirit. We are made up, there's a trinity of all of us, mind, body, spirit. The body's taken care of by, for me, it's Anytime Fitness, and Titan Lawn and Landscape kicks my ass more than the gym does. But therapy is mind, body, spirit. And I study shamanism. I'm not a shaman by any stretch, but it is my preference to fuel my spiritual side. And I have a lean on a lot of Buddhist philosophy as well. And that also fuels my spiritual side. But when it comes to thinking through stuff like this, dealing with that feeling of sheer panic, terror, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Therapy, please check it out. My therapist is retired, but I had my therapist and then I had my trauma therapist. And I believe that the healing center where I went is still open. I think my trauma therapist also retired, but there's others there and they're really, really good. And sorry folks, this is for those two resources are for locally, but thanks to the interwebs, searching out therapists should be fairly easy. And check out, like, do reviews on them, like Dr. So-and-so reviews kind of thing. And if you're feeling traumatized, look for a trauma therapist. Any therapists that are listening, please comment below with your licensed advice about searching out where folks can go or any other resources too that people can look at. I'm going to include Brene Brown's stuff too. She's just too cool. Her website is brenebrown.com. It's BRENE Brown, as in the color.com. And she's got a podcast called Brene on FFTs. Fucking first times. I love it. And with that, I hope that this information helps and that you know you're not alone now. We are all in this pandemic together, and together we will get through this and we will thrive. Peace. Love ya. Mwah. See you next time.